It was kind of a shocking turn of events. The president asking OPEC plus, really meaning Russia and maybe Mexico, to raise output. Kind of hit me. I cover oil and gas as a bolt to lightning. What did you think about it?
Well, Brian, we've been warning about this for 8 months. I think, as you know, we've been very concerned about some of these the president's policies, particularly as it relates to the leasing ban on onshore and offshore. We've been concerned about what they've done on American pipeline infrastructure, and now they're threatening to increase taxes on American oil and gas. The policy response is clearly going to be an increase in price as a consequence of that. You're seeing an increase of supply, of course, but demand is also increasing as we're getting through the COVID pandemic. So we frankly think it's very outrageous when we have American producers making American oil and gas in the United States that we should be asking another country to increase their production.
Yeah, and again, with all due respect to the president, certainly, and I know prices have come down a couple of bucks in the last few weeks. They're up $20 a barrel since the beginning of the year, up 25 a barrel from a little bit before that, Mike. So we are seeing a tightening of demand. And as I have only half jokingly called it, 2021 is going to be the year of the traffic jam. During COVID, people, they've gotten rid of mass transit. They've all bought cars. Everybody is moving around in their own vehicles. Gasoline demand is massive right now. Do we as Americans have the ability to meet that demand?
Well, what we're seeing from this president right now is what we're calling an import more oil policy. They're doing all of these things to stifle supply from the United States. And as you know, capital flows where it is safe and welcome. And right now, this administration, through all of their actions, they're literally throwing the kitchen sink at the American oil and gas industry, an industry that supports 11 million American jobs. And we think that they should be doing more to incentivize American oil and gas production, as President Biden's predecessor, President Obama, did, which President Obama literally presided over the most important era of American production in the history of this country, where we went from being a net global importer of oil to a net exporter of oil because of the fracking revolution that occurred under President Obama's watch. We want to go back to those policies. And I think Americans want us to go back to those policies as well.
Well, I spoke with a former Obama administration official maybe just before the pandemic, and he was saying, yeah, it was the only industry adding jobs after the financial crisis. So, of course, we weren't going to come out against it. But you've got these forces that are at play as well. But, you know, Mike, I'm not going to just blame it on policy. Part of the reason that we're not seeing a jump in oil and gas production is because oil and gas investors have gotten burned in the last decade, and they're saying to the CEOs, hey, you know what? Don't put your money in the ground. Give it back to us. What is your word of advice, perhaps, to the American oil and gas industry? Because it's not all regulation. It's also just the balance sheet, and people have gotten spooked in the last decade.
Well, certainly there's been increased fiscal discipline in the oil and gas industry, and that is absolutely part of the issue here. But when you put this new regulatory burden that you're putting on the American oil and gas industry right now, you're going to have, of course, a price response to that. So those are certainly two factors that are figuring into increased prices at the pump. But also remember that the environmental benefits of the American oil and gas industry have been incredible too. We would not be anywhere near meeting our Paris Climate Accord agreement were it not for that fracking revolution that occurred 12 years ago. It is the reason why we've increased the amount of natural gas that this industry has produced. And that has led to a displacement of coal with natural gas, which has led to emissions going down year on year, and our GHG emissions continue to go down. There are not the same environmental standards throughout the world, and we think that we should be producing that energy here in the United States because it's environmentally responsible and it's also good for consumers at the pump and elsewhere.